Well, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. It's Black Church Chats. Pastor Isaiah Robertson coming at you from South LA. Listen, really quickly, if you are anywhere in the Los Angeles area or you know someone in the Los Angeles area, tell them to come visit us at the New Congregational Missionary Baptist Church on 112th in Vermont. We have Sunday service at 10 a.m., Sunday school at 9 a.m., and then we do virtual Bible study via Facebook Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. So check us out. You wherever you are, you can check us out on Facebook Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. But if you're in LA County, San Bernardino County, Riverside County, come check us out at New Congregational Missionary Baptist Church on 112th and Vermont. All right. Enough of that. Boy, do we have to have a conversation today. And this is a very, 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 very important conversation. As a matter of fact, I am praying and hoping that Black pastors everywhere will hear me. They will hear this clarion call and they will embrace it and move accordingly. Because we are under attack. And by we, I mean the Black community, the Black church, Black culture, Black history. It is under attack. This administration that is currently in power in this country, they are doing very overt and blatant things to unravel and attack the legacy and the contributions of Black people in this country. And it's really sad. It's really sad. Now, to be honest, I cannot say that I am surprised. Conservatives, they like to call guys like me woke. And look, you may use that as a pejorative, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Because it's all of the unwoke people that are observing the moves and the actions of this current administration, and they're scratching their heads and they're like, whoa, I didn't think he was going to do that. I had no idea that this was going to happen. Oh, wow, I didn't see this coming. All of the quote unquote unwoke people are now looking at these tariffs. They're now looking at these draconian policies, this clear and blatant move toward authoritarianism, trying to dictate what goes on at Harvard and other universities. And all of the unwoke people are surprised. Well, us quote unquote woke people, we're not surprised. We're not surprised that he is attacking and assaulting Black culture and Black history. I mean, when he ran the first time, there was a Black guy in his crowd at a rally, and he referred to the Black guy as his African American. He literally said, my African American. Even before he entered politics, faced numerous lawsuits as a result of discriminatory lending and discriminatory rental practices. I mean, the Central Park Five and calling for their hanging, even though they were innocent. I mean, we just go on and on and on and on with all the examples. And so we knew that this guy was no friend to Black people. And now he's making moves specifically designed to reframe history, to further whitewash history. I mean, you would think that history couldn't be whitewashed any further. Well, Donald Trump is like, hold my beer. Watch what I'm about to do. He is literally attempting to create a false narrative about American history that, of course, paints this country as this paragon, this example of godly piety and righteousness and valor. And he's coming after actual history. It's so funny because when after George Floyd was lynched, and all of these Confederate monuments across the country started coming down, all of the Confederacy supporters and the Confederacy sympathizers, they were livid. And their argument was, this is our heritage. We have great grandparents that fought in the Civil War. And so what you guys are doing by tearing down these monuments, you guys are erasing history. That was their argument. You guys are erasing history. Why do you guys want to erase history? Now, of course, the response to that is, we're not erasing history. We're making it clear that insurrectionists and seditionists against the American way of life and against this country should not be celebrated, should not be lauded and applauded. I mean, if you want to celebrate your great-great-grandpappy privately and have a private memorial for your great-great-grandpappy that fought in the Confederacy, go for it. But the American government should not recognize nor celebrate these people, because these people were seditionists, these people were treasonous, these people were actively trying to destroy this country. And so it's not erasing history, it's correcting the narrative, and it's removing these people from being lionized as wonderful, stalwart people who were about freedom and justice. No, they were treasonous, they were seditionists, and they were actively trying to destroy this country. And so therefore, no monuments should be erected. But your argument was, you guys are trying to erase history. And now here we are. There's a president in power that is literally trying to erase history, literally trying to eliminate the contributions of Black people throughout the centuries. If you have not been paying attention, this administration, they have been taking steps to eradicate and marginalize Black history and Black culture. And I want to show you something so that you know that I'm not just ranting and raving, so that you know that this is actually happening. So check this out.
Trump is forcing changes at the Smithsonian Institution. He wants to reverse what he calls a concerted effort to replace objective facts with a distorted narrative driven by ideology. The Smithsonian was established by Congress with money from the estate of British scientist James Smithson. The order will allow Vice President Vance, who serves on the Smithsonian's board, to pull funding from programs whose ideology has been deemed improper. Trump signaled out the National Museum of African American History, as well as the Women's History Museum, which is still in development.
So he's coming after the National African American Museum in Washington, D.C. This is a phenomenal museum. I've been there once. I didn't spend as much time there as I should have, and I desperately want to go back, and I will go back soon. This is an amazing museum, breathtaking exhibits, phenomenal journey through history. The Trump administration is attacking this museum as being anti-American, as essentially telling a false story about our country, when that is absolutely not the case. Slavery happened. It was brutal. It was disgusting. Families were sold away from each other. Women were raped. People were branded. After slavery, and after the bottom falls out of Reconstruction, you have black codes, you have sharecropping, Black people being taken advantage of, Black people being lynched, Black people being terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan. You have the rise of Jim Crow, separate and unequal. You have this history that is ugly but true, that the Trump administration would like to sweep under the rug. And because the National African American Museum in DC, because this museum tells the truth, and this museum takes you on a journey through actual history where you see graphic images and depictions of the abuse and the torment that our ancestors experienced, the Trump administration wants to eradicate this because the Trump administration wants to create a narrative about our history that's more in line with the lost cause and false ideologies and notions about our country rooted in white supremacy and notions of white superiority. And this is the first step. This man hasn't even been in office for a year, and he's making it clear where he's going. This is just the first step. This is the beginning of what will increasingly be an attack on Black life, Black culture, and Black history. Well, the good news is that there are some prophets out there that have not bowed the knee to Baal. As a matter of fact, right in Washington, D.C., there's a preacher by the name of Reverend Dr. George Parks. He pastors the Metropolitan Baptist Church, and he's in the White House's backyard. And he issued a statement in the wake of this executive order that was signed by Donald Trump, effectively seeking to eliminate and or whitewash the National African American History Museum. Dr. Parks and the Metropolitan Baptist Church, they issue a statement, and I want to read this statement to you right now because our discussion is really going to be framed around this very, very, very important and meaningful statement. Check it out. I'm going to put it up on the screen, and then I'm going to read this statement to you. So this is a statement from Metropolitan Baptist Church in DC. Starts off by saying, "We will not allow our story to be erased. In response to President Trump's recent executive order targeting the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, Reverend Dr. George L. Parks Jr. reminds us that our truth is sacred and non-negotiable. This is more than a political act. It's a moral offense against the legacy of our ancestors and a threat to the education of future generations," he says. "Metropolitan stands firm. We will continue to preach, teach, and preserve the rich history of Black people in this country, the history of our faith, our struggle, our resilience, and our rise. We will not be silent." John 8:32, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Join us as we commit to sharing our stories, honoring our legacy, and making sure our children know the truth that sets them free. Reverend Dr. George L. Parks, Senior Servant. Thank you, Metropolitan Baptist Church. Thank you, Dr. Parks. What you've exhibited is a stand for truth, a stand for accurate history that we would hope even those that maybe not be ideologically aligned with us, they would want that same stand as well. What's at stake is more than just an assault upon Black history. What's at stake is the nature of truth itself. Because if you create a false narrative and then push this false narrative as a true narrative, what you're ultimately attacking is the fabric of objective truth itself, which is why Reverend Parks and Metropolitan quoted John 8. The truth sets you free, not a whitewashed, truncated, idealized, romanticized version of the truth. The truth sets you free. And what Dr. Parks has done and the Metropolitan Baptist Church has done is take a stand for truth and for accuracy. And in doing so, they have placed themselves on God's side. Yes, yes. This is an issue of being on God's side and not being on God's side. This is an issue of being for truth, not being for truth. Because reflecting history accurately is really, really close to the heart of God. And it's in fact something that God wants. You don't believe me? Let me read something to you. Let me read something to you. This is Joshua chapter 4. This is after the children of Israel pass over the Jordan. Joshua leads them over the Jordan on into Canaan. And look at what Yahweh tells them to do. Let's see. Let's start in Joshua chapter 4, verse 4. So hear this. Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel, whom he had appointed, a man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, pass on before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and take up each of you a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. When your children ask in time to come, what do those stones mean to you? Then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever. And the people of Israel did just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, just as the Lord told Joshua. And they carried them over with them to the place where they lodged and laid them down. So it was the Lord's desire. This desire was communicated through Joshua to the people, for the people to commemorate the crossing of the Jordan by finding 12 memorial stones and setting them up so that the people would have an accurate accounting of what God did for them in the past. They were to look at these stones and tell the story. And these stones were to serve as a reminder of what God had done for them in the past. Well, what's implied there is that over time, the past can easily be forgotten. Over time, the past could easily be skewed, polluted, retold in an incorrect way. And so what God is mandating here through Joshua is a practical way for the people to learn, understand, and remember their history. And so what Dr. Parks is doing and what Metropolitan is doing is they're saying, no, we're not going to pull up the 12 stones. We're going to keep the 12 stones there. And not only are we going to keep the 12 stones there, but we're going to continue telling our children about what these 12 stones mean. We're going to continue telling our children about the goodness of God and what God has done for us. And we're going to tell the truth. We're going to tell accurate history. Because if we don't, if we go along with these actions, then we're going to end up just like the children of Israel ended up in the book of Judges. Now, I don't want to make this too long of a Bible study, but if you know anything about the book of Judges, you know that Judges presents a cyclical problem that was being experienced by the children of Israel. They would engulf themselves in wickedness and rebellion. They would be punished as a result of their wickedness and rebellion. They would cry out to God in their punishment. God would send them a deliverer, a rescuer. They would be brought out of their punishment, only for the same cycles to start over and over and over again. This happened over and over and over again in the book of Judges. And if you read Judges without an understanding of the history, then you would easily ask, like, why are they so crazy? Why do they keep repeating the same behavior? Well, I mean, what is it? Why are they so jacked up? Well, Judges chapter 2 answers that. Now listen to this. Listen to Judges chapter 2. And it's going to be, let's see, Judges chapter 2. I'm going to start in verse 10. Verse 9. Joshua dies, and they bury Joshua within the boundaries of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. Verse 10. And all the generation also were gathered to their fathers. So that's all of Joshua's generation. They all died. Into verse 10. And there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done for Israel. So this generation arises after the Joshua generation, and they don't know the Lord, and they don't know the work that the Lord had done for them in their past. And the two are linked. The reason why God wanted his people to know their past, the reason why God wanted them to set up memorial stones, the reason why God wanted his people to continually reflect, and they were to celebrate festivals, and they were to do things like the Feast of Booths, where they lived in tents out in the open, right? Is because God wanted them to remember their history, because in remembering their history, they would remember him and how good he is, how wonderful he is, and how much of a protector and a provider he is. And their zeal, their passion for him would not wane, because they constantly remembered his great exploits for them in the past. And so when they experienced rough moments, tough moments, they were able to look beyond their rough moments and tough moments, because God had proven himself in the way that he operated in the past. And so they didn't know God. And it's most likely the case that they didn't know God because they didn't know anything about the way that God moved in their past. And as a result of their ignorance of their past, they didn't know God, and they became a nation of cyclical rebellion, cyclical wickedness, enslavement, bondage, over and over and over and over and over again. And this is what's at stake. When we don't teach our children accurate, truthful history, then the historical ills can be repeated. The historical atrocities can be repeated. If we refuse to stand up for truth and accuracy, and if we refuse to continue to tell the story, then a generation will arise that don't know God, and they don't know the God of our ancestors, the God that led us through the Middle Passage, the God that preserved us through the dark night of slavery, the God that motivated us to triumph during Jim Crow. So Dr. Parks is saying no. we have an obligation to tell the story. And here is the clarion call. Every Black pastor and every Black church should recognize the urgency of the moment. Recognize that there is an assault upon truth and accurate history, and recognize that some will kowtow to Donald Trump and the Trump administration. Some will just capitulate and fall over and bow and say, okay, all right, well, go ahead and do that. All right, well, we're not worried about history over here. We're not worried about what God has done in the past over here. So, we just gonna keep, just trying to make people shout and not educating people. Hopefully they will be in the minority. And the majority of Black pastors in Black churches will follow the example of Metropolitan and Dr. Parks. And so I'm committing. Thank you, Dr. Parks. Thank you, Metropolitan. I'm committing. If you follow my ministry, if you follow what goes on here in New Congregational Missionary Baptist Church, talking about the Black church, talking about Black history, nothing new to us. As a matter of fact, this past Black History Month, we did Black church history lectures. We do them often. I talk about Black history and Black church history all the time. As a matter of fact, let me say this: Black church history and Black history, they are intertwined. As you study Black church history, you study Black history. You cannot separate one from. I know that a lot of secular historians try to diminish the contributions of the Black church and the involvement, engagement of the Black church by our historical heroes. That is just as much historical revisionism as what Trump is trying to do. No, you cannot separate the history of the Black church from Black history. They are intertwined. As a matter of fact, I want to show you something. Here's a book that you ought to all read. This book is called Black is a Church. And it's by Joseph Surratt. Black is a Church. This is what it says on the inside of the book. I just want to read this to you. It's a scholarly book. It's a phenomenal book. But listen to this. It says, in Black is a Church, Joseph Surratt maps the ways in which Black American culture and identity have been animated by a particular set of Protestant ideas and practices in order to chart the mutually reinforcing discourses of racial authenticity and religious orthodoxy that have made Christianity essential to the very notion of Blackness. Now, he is not, as far as I know, a Christian, a Protestant Christian himself, but he understands the link between Black Christianity, particularly what he calls Afro-Protestantism, and Black history and Black existence and Black culture. It goes on to say, Surratt reveals the ways that Christianity, white supremacy, and colonialism coalesced in the modern category of religion and became formative to the emergence of Black identity in North America. Black is a Church examines the surprising alliances, peculiar performances, and at times contradictory ideas and complex institutions that shape the contours of Black life in the United States. The book begins by arguing that Afro-Protestantism has relied upon literary strategies to explain itself since the earliest years of its formation. Through an examination of slave narratives and spiritual autobiographies, it shows how Protestant Christianity was essential to the establishment of the earliest Black literary forms. Surratt then follows Afro-Protestantism's heterodox history in the convergence of literature, politics, and religion at the end of the 19th century, and he shows how religious aspirations animated early calls for race literature and how the color line provided an organizing logic for religious innovations as divergent as pluralism and Pentecostalism. From the earliest literary productions of the 18th century to Black Lives Matter movement in the 21st century, religion, namely Protestant Christianity, is seen to be at the very center of Black life in North America. I just kind of took a detour there to prove my point that you cannot separate Black church history from Black history in this country. But what Dr. Parks has done and what Metropolitan Baptist Church they have done is say, no, we have an obligation as Black faith leaders to tell the story. Accurate and truthful Black history may be suppressed in schools, in institutions of higher learning, but it cannot be suppressed in the Black church. The only way that it could be suppressed in the Black church is if Black pastors and Black leaders within the Black church suppress it. And so we have to accept the mandate now more than ever. We should have been doing this all along. But now more than ever, it is crucial and critical that we accept the mandate as Black clergy and Black leaders to teach our people the truth, accurate history. So then the question becomes how? How do we do it? How do we do it? Well, there are ways that you can weave the history of our people into your sermons where it's contextually applicable. There are workshops that you can hold separate from Sunday morning worship. There are podcasts that you can host, that you invite your congregation. There's a number of ways to do this. But we got to be about the business of doing it. Now, you may be a Black pastor. You may be a Black pastor. Listen to me right now, saying, "Okay, I agree with you. I agree with you, but I don't know where to start." Maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know Black history or Black church history, and if you don't, that's okay. That's okay. All right. If you matriculated through the educational system in America, it's not only is it okay, it's even understandable the way that history is whitewashed in this country. But you can start today. You can start to learn today. My problem isn't with those that don't know. My problem is with those Black preachers or Black pastors that don't want to know. Well, why do we need to know all that? Why is that important? I hope that I just displayed from Joshua 4 and Judges 2. Let me read another text. How about I read Ecclesiastes 3? For the Black preacher, the Black pastor, the leader, the Black church leader that says, we don't need to know all that. All that stuff is irrelevant. How about this? Ecclesiastes 3:15 says this: that which is what has already been. And that which will be has already been. Can we unpack that? That which is, that's the present, is what already has been. There's nothing new under the sun. You know that old saying, history repeats itself? Well, there seems to be some biblical validity to that. Because the author here is basically saying what's happening right now is just a repackaging of what's happened before. And then he goes on to say that which will be, so that's the future, has already been. So a good way to know what's going to happen up the road is by studying the past, learning history. And here's the kicker. The end of verse 15 says God seeks what has passed by. God is into history. God is into the unfolding story and knowing that unfolding story understanding that unfolding story, embracing that unfolding story accurately. Black pastor, black preacher, be like God. If you don't know history, I get it. I love history. I love history. I love it. Love history. That might not be your story. History may be hard for you to grasp, may be boring to you. I get it. But we're at a crisis moment where, for the sake of our people, for the sake of our children, for the sake of the generations to come, we need to engage, even if it grates against our comfort. So it's never too late. Never too late to learn. As a matter of fact, let me give you some suggestions here. Where to start. You may be saying, where do I start? I'm going to take up this task. I recognize and realize that this administration, they are moving towards creating a false and an inaccurate narrative. They are moving towards promulgating ahistorical claims and realities, which ultimately will be detrimental not just to Black people but to all people. And so let's take up the charge. Let's do it. And some of you guys are right there with me. But you're saying, where do I start? Let me give you some recommendations. Let me give you some suggestions. This book right here, The Half Has Never Been Told: Slavery and the Making of American Capitalism. In my opinion, there is no way someone can read this tome honestly and objectively and not believe in reparations. All right, you are going to get a detailed accounting of the institution of slavery and how the institution of slavery literally made this country rich, and how corporations and people are benefiting from the institution of slavery today. But it's a great historical accounting of the horrible atrocity that was slavery. It's long, it's thick, it's big, but it's worth it. So The Half Has Never Been Told. Read some primary sources, firsthand narratives. This is slave testimony. 2 centuries of letters, speeches, interviews, and autobiographies, edited by John W. Blassingame. It's an OG book right here, where you're able to hear from enslaved people, formerly enslaved people, firsthand of their experience. All right. Classic right here, The Warmth of Other Suns. Learn about the Great Migration. Okay. Learn about the experience of our ancestors as they left the rural South for southern cities, for northern cities, for Western cities. And there's some insight to be gained about the Black church in here as well. All right. Here's another classic, Slave Religion by Albert J. Rabateau. Another phenomenal classic. Again, Black church history, Black history, they're intertwined. As you read this, you will learn so much about the history of our people, even outside of the Black church. Let's see. Traveling on. This is The Slave Journey to an Afro-Baptist Faith. And I'm just giving you guys some recommendations of where to start. History of the Black Baptist Church. I don't feel no ways tired. All right. If you want to learn, listen, you want to learn about some of the dynamics of the civil rights movement, and the posture of Black people during the civil rights movement, and why there was a schism within the National Baptist Convention USA during the civil rights movement. All right. You've got the Negro Church in America, E. Franklin Frazier, the Black Church since Frazier. All right. And then I already told you about Black as a Church, Joseph Surratt. Y'all, we need to take up this task. If you're listening to me and you are not a Black pastor, but you know some. Please send this to them. Please tell them to watch this. If you are a Black parishioner, layperson, please tap your pastor, your assistant pastor, your deacons, have them listen to this. Dr. Parks is leading the charge. We need to join hands together, just like we did during COVID. Remember during COVID? What happened during COVID? We shut down our churches, right? And what did Trump do then? You guys can open up your churches. You guys can go back and worship safely. As a matter of fact, you guys should open up your churches. Remember that? And almost collectively, the Black church said, no, what? No. We are being impacted by COVID more than any other demographic. What you mean? No, we good. And we saw this amazing display of unity within the Black church during COVID as Trump endangered our lives by suggesting that it was completely and totally safe to open up our churches. The Black church was like, no, we love us. We love our people. We good. Let this moment mirror that in terms of our unity along this issue, our togetherness along the importance of maintaining our history, teaching our history. Listen, we're moving toward an America where accurate history is going to be removed. I mean, what's left of it will be removed from primary schools, middle schools, high schools, institutions of higher learning. God forbid that people cannot come to the Black church to learn it. Accurate history, if you can't find it anywhere else, accurate truth, if you can't find it anywhere else, you ought to be able to find it in the Black church. And by ensuring that we are teaching, conveying this history, we are ensuring that another generation does not arise that doesn't know the Lord, nor the wonderful things he's done for us in the past. So let's get to it. Let's start thinking through, hey, I'd be happy to work with you, right? So listen, I would love to sit down and talk with pastors about how they can create really good offerings and ministries around Black church history and Black history in their congregations. I would even love to come to churches and teach workshops and seminars and things of that nature. Like, let's do this. Let's do this because the truth of that state. All right, y'all. I appreciate you. Please make sure that you like, comment, share, subscribe. Again, share this with a pastor of a Black church. It's crucial that we get the word out. All right, y'all. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Bye-bye.